The smell of hot iron hit the nose. The muffled groans of people merged into a single choir. The glowing coals cast dark red reflections on the stone walls. The gaze caught the flickering sparks rising to the vaults. We will prove that the legendary scene of Lawrence's torment does not quite match historical accounts. According to the canonical version, Archdeacon Lawrence of Vescia, on the 10th of August in the year 1258, during his torture, expressed himself with remarkable humor. "Turn me over. This side is already well done." This description, passed down through later hagiographical manuscripts, became a symbol of the resilience of the Christian faith in the face of the cruelty of Roman authorities. However, if we turn to the documents of that time, the legend begins to crack, and entirely different details emerge. Rome in the middle of the 3rd century was under the heavy burden of persecutions declared by Emperor Valerian, and every step of the Christians was under the watchful eye of Prefect Claudius. Lawrence, holding the position of archdeacon, was responsible for distributing church treasures and caring for the poor and sick. According to surviving official papers, he was given a strictly defined period, from the 3rd to the 6th of August in the year 1258, to hand over all valuables associated with the Christian community to the prefect of Rome. And although canonical sources describe the martyrdom on the 10th of August, state reports record that the entry regarding the transfer of wealth is dated the 6th of August, when arrests had already begun. At the same time, an official document appeared confirming that it was indeed on the 6th of August that Lawrence was recorded as appearing before the praetor, where he brought 82 needy individuals from his own list. It is in this correspondence that we can find the exact mention of the number of poor and infirm who received a chance for help, thanks to the archdeacon's efforts. But what really happened in those days? The coincidence of the charges presented to Pope Sixtus II and Lawrence's appearance before the authorities is not accidental. Court chronicles mention that preparations for the executions of Christians were underway simultaneously for both figures, as if the fates of the archdeacon and the bishop were inextricably linked on one day. As a result, some contemporaries believed that, in reality, both were beheaded even before any attempt at grilling. Evidence indicates that there was neither a hot grill nor the famous bold words of the martyr at the place of torture. Furthermore, closer to the evening of the 6th of August, an unusual natural phenomenon, a meteor shower later named the Tears of St. Lawrence, swept across the surrounding hills, and many concluded that the glowing trails in the night sky served as confirmation of a miracle. But hardly can this symbolism replace reliable documents and eyewitness accounts of the colorless moment of execution. Another fact that disrupts the canonical narrative is the mention of a fragrant aroma that, according to courtiers, seemed to emanate from the condemned at the moment of the supposed grilling. No one could explain why delicate notes of frankincense and myrrh appeared on the hot iron if the executioner's hands merely operated the iron and fire. Despite all this, the chronicles say nothing about a special source of the fragrances, and this hint resembles a later legend, embellished by medieval notions of sanctity. The question arises, how did all the details of the canon end up being inconsistent with each other and with the official protocols? How to reconcile the image of the martyr on the grill with indirect evidence that the execution might not have been the spectacle that later generations preferred to portray? To understand where these contradictions came from, we must re-examine the role of the archdeacon in the early years after his arrival in Rome and trace the path from his native Spain to the papal seat. And while we analyze these inconsistencies, if you enjoy this lively perspective on rare pages of the past, subscribe. It will help us tell even more amazing stories. Returning to the description of the canonical scene, it is worth noting that the first hagiographical texts, created 1 or 2 centuries after the events, are imbued with hagiographic pathos and often serve not so much as a historical viewpoint, but as an educational illustration for the faithful. Other details are also mentioned there. The cloak, brutally torn from the martyr, was supposedly adorned with golden threads that never had the chance to lose their value under the heat of the coals. However, in the protocols of Prefect Claudius, there is not a word about golden decorations. Only in the column Church Property are significant sums of silver and bronze listed as non-reward property, without any embellishments. At the same time, we have surviving correspondence from Lawrence's lifetime with his neighbors, which mentioned his house at the Holy Gates, not far from Trajan's Forum, a place, however, much more modest than the treasures of the archdeacon described in the hagiographies. At the same time, we received the correspondence from the neighbors of Lawrence, which mentioned his house by the Holy Gates, not far from the Forum of Trajan, a place, however, much more modest than the treasures of the archdeacon described in the Lives of the Saints. On the 4th of August, the archdeacon compiled a list and attached letters about alms to demonstrate to the praetor that the community did not keep valuables for luxury, but only to help those in need. It was then that the main misunderstanding arose. The officials treated any valuables formally, without interest in their purpose, and upon receiving the report from Lawrence, they hastily executed him, considering the display of generosity a criminal act. The subsequent letters likely burned along with the archives in the first Christian fire of late antiquity, and thus we see only fragmentary data. Soon after the execution of Sixtus II and Lawrence, the meteor shower known as the Tears of St. Lawrence began, and witnesses lying on the stones near the arena spoke of silvery sparks falling across the night sky. It was hardly anything other than a natural phenomenon, but many believed it to be a sign of heavenly support and an astonishing confirmation of martyrdom. This historical mosaic, seemingly assembled from different plots, raises the main question: how can one reconcile the legendary picture of the archdeacon's resilience and humor with the facts that paint a much more prosaic and tragic ending? To find the answer, we will return to the beginning of Lawrence's journey, to the Spanish coast, where in his youth he first saw the sea, and from there set off to the capital of the world empire. However, before examining this path, let us clarify who the person behind the name of the Saint Martyr was. To understand the roots of this contradiction, we need to return to Lawrence's early years and trace his journey from Spain to Rome. Lawrence, born around the year 220 in a village located in the Roman province of Tarraconensis, became one of the key figures of early Christianity. His parents were Christians, which at that time meant not only faith, but also certain risks, as Christianity was just beginning to establish itself in society, and its followers often faced persecution. From an early age, Lawrence displayed outstanding abilities, allowing him to graduate with honors from school in Caesar Augusta, modern Zaragoza, around the year 245. This educational institution was renowned for its high level of education and preparation of young people for service in the church. After completing his schooling, he entered a catechetical school, where he deepened his knowledge of the Christian faith and its foundations, which became an important step on his path to a future career. In the year 2050, while in Caesar Augusta, Lawrence met the deacon Annulus Sixtus, who later became Pope Sixtus II. This meeting had a significant impact on his life. A spiritual friendship developed between them, based on shared views and a desire to serve the church. Sixtus II, recognizing Lawrence's abilities, appointed him Archdeacon of the Roman Church in the year 257. This appointment marked an important milestone in Lawrence's career, opening new horizons and opportunities for him. In his new position, Lawrence took on the responsibility of maintaining the register of church donations, distributing alms, and safeguarding the relics. These tasks required not only organizational skills, but also a deep understanding of the community's needs. Lawrence proved to be a talented administrator who skillfully managed resources and cared for the needy. His work in Rome coincided with a period of significant changes and instability in the Christian community, making his activities even more crucial. However, soon the first persecutions of Christians arrived in Rome. The situation became increasingly dangerous, and Lawrence's position in the church turned into a deadly risk. As an archdeacon, he found himself at the center of events when the Christian community faced threats from the authorities. Lawrence, being a provincial from Spain, managed to occupy such an important position in Rome thanks to his abilities, dedication, and spiritual friendship with Sixtus II. His journey from the village to Rome became a symbol of how faith and talent can overcome geographical and social barriers. During this time, Lawrence not only managed church affairs, but also became an important link between various layers of Christian society, further emphasizing his significance as a leader. In the early 2nd century, Christianity, despite its roots, still remained largely a marginal movement in the Roman Empire. However, with each passing year, the number of followers grew, which could not help but raise concerns among the authorities. In January of the year 257, Emperor Valerian issued the first edict requiring bishops, priests, and deacons to offer sacrifices to pagan gods. This decree dealt a severe blow to the Christian community, which sought to preserve its identity and fidelity to the teachings of Christ. In August of 2058, Valerian issued a second edict, which stipulated immediate execution for all who refused to make sacrifices. These measures undermined the foundations of the Christian faith and called its continued existence into question. At this time, Pope Sixtus II, one of the most respected leaders of Christianity, was arrested on the 6th of August in the catacombs of Praetextatus. Along with him, 4 deacons were captured and beheaded, which was a true shock for the community. Lawrence, the archdeacon and closest associate of Sixtus II, immediately went to the place of execution to meet the Pope one last time. This meeting was filled with bitterness and an understanding of the inevitability of fate, but also with a determination to continue the fight for faith. Lawrence felt the weight of responsibility for the fate of the church, and his heart was filled with anxiety. A few hours after the Pope's arrest, the praetor ordered Lawrence's arrest as well, highlighting how dangerous the situation had become for Christians. While the Christian community was experiencing one of the darkest periods in its history, Lawrence realized that he would have to take on the roles previously held by the Pope. He understood that the leadership of the church must remain strong and united, despite the threat. In this atmosphere of fear and uncertainty, Lawrence stood before the prefect of Rome with an order to hand over all the treasures of the church. This moment became a symbol not only of his personal courage, but also of the resilience of the entire Christian community, ready to sacrifice everything for their faith. In these difficult times, Lawrence became not only a defender of his brothers and sisters, but also an embodiment of hope for the future, showing that even in the darkest circumstances, faith can remain a light that leads to freedom. In the history of humanity, there are moments when values are defined not only by material goods, but also by compassion for one's neighbor. In August of 250, when Rome was under the pressure of brutal persecutions against Christians, Prefect Claudius issued an edict requiring the church to provide all its valuables by the 10th of the month. This demand left no choice, and the priest Lawrence, faithful to his calling, was given only 3 days to gather the treasures. From the 6th to the 9th of August, he used this time not to accumulate gold or silver, but to distribute alms among the needy. Lawrence understood that the true treasures of the church were not jewels, but people who needed help and support. On the appointed day when it was time to appear before the praetor, he came not with gold, but accompanied by 400 poor, sick, and disabled individuals, whom he had gathered to demonstrate the true wealth of the church. When he pointed to them and said, "These are the treasures of the church," his words became a challenge not only to Claudius, but to the entire system that valued things only in material terms. The prefect, enraged by such an insult, could not accept that his demands had been turned down. He issued an order for Lawrence to be tortured, which became the climax of the conflict between two worlds: a world where values are measured by money, and a world where love and compassion are paramount. This moment became not only a point of no return for Lawrence, but also a symbol of the struggle for true values that cannot be quantified. The question of what is truly important, gold or the needy, became central to this conflict, laying the groundwork for the events that would soon unfold. Soon Lawrence would meet his fate, and his martyrdom became an example of resilience and fidelity to his beliefs in the most difficult times. The 10th of August in the year 2058 became a fateful date for Lawrence, the deacon of the Roman Church, who was subjected to cruel punishment. According to court records of that time, he was tied to a heated iron grill, which was said to have been heated to red. This execution, which became a symbol of resilience and fidelity to Christian beliefs, was etched in the memory of the people. Lawrence, despite his suffering, maintained remarkable calm and even uttered the phrase, "Turn me over, this side is already well done." This testimony of his courage became the basis for many church biographies that described him as a model of faith and resilience. Contemporaries noted that his body emitted not the foul smell of burning flesh, but on the contrary, a fragrant aroma, which added a mystical touch to his martyrdom. However, despite these inspiring accounts, critics pointed to the lack of direct Latin documents confirming the existence of the grill itself, which cast doubt on the physical reality of the execution's description. The question of what was the reality of the sufferings and what became a later liturgical mystification continued to concern researchers and believers. At the site of Lawrence's execution, according to contemporary accounts, there was a mass conversion of senators and spectators to Christianity, which indicated the profound impact of his sufferings on those around him. This conversion became an important moment in the history of Christianity, as it emphasized the power of faith even in the face of brutal persecution. Soon after Lawrence's execution, his memory began to acquire a cult status, leading to the establishment of churches and cathedrals in his honor, such as the famous Basilica of St. Lawrence outside the walls of Rome. This transition from martyrdom to cultic tradition marked a significant stage in the development of Christianity and its integration into the social and cultural life of the Roman Empire. The memory of Lawrence not only strengthened the faith of his followers, but also became a symbol of hope for many who suffered for their beliefs. The fate of St. Lawrence, a martyr whose name became a symbol of faith and hope, left a deep mark on history and culture. According to tradition, his body was buried on the Via Tiburtina immediately after his execution in the year 1250, and this place became the center of veneration for the saint. In the early 4th century, Emperor Constantine I, seeking to immortalize Lawrence's memory, built a majestic basilica, San Lorenzo fuori le mura, over his grave. This structure not only became an architectural masterpiece, but also a symbol of Christian faith, strengthening the position of the new religion in the Roman Empire. In the 16th century, during his reign, King Philip II of Spain erected the Escorial near Madrid in the shape of a heated grill, symbolizing Lawrence's martyrdom. This grand architectural project became not only a burial place, but also a site of worship, reflecting the greatness and significance of the saint for the Spanish people. Lawrence inspired not only architects, but also artists. His image was captured in the works of masters such as Fra Angelico, Titian, and Rubens. In each of these works, a characteristic motif of a smile was preserved, highlighting the inner world of the saint and his resilience in the face of suffering. These paintings, created in different eras, showed how the image of Lawrence changed, reflecting the values and ideals relevant to their time. In the poem Prudentius, written around the year 405, there is a hymn to St. Lawrence in the work Parastephanon, which attests to his early veneration and importance to the Christian community. The image of Lawrence evolved from a martyr symbolizing steadfastness in faith to an embodiment of care for the poor and oppressed. In different historical periods, he was perceived in various ways: as a defender of Christianity in difficult times, as a symbol of hope for those who suffered, and as an architectural protuberance embodying the greatness and power of the Church. In contemporary theology and culture, his legacy continues to live on, inspiring new generations. Lawrence became not only a sacred figure, but also a symbol of the struggle for justice and mercy, making him relevant even today. Reflecting on his legacy, one can see how his figure continues to influence social and cultural processes, reflecting the eternal values of love and compassion. The martyrdom of Lawrence, one of the most venerated saints, left a deep mark on history and culture, and his significance continues to be felt in modern times. Lawrence, who became a symbol of resilience and devotion to ideals, is honored as the patron of the poor, librarians, and cooks, a tradition that began in the 7th century. His name, derived from the Latin Laurentius, is associated with the concept of laurel, which symbolizes victory and triumph, emphasizing the importance of spiritual strength and moral victory over evil. Every year, on the 10th of August, on the feast day of the saint, the sky fills with meteors known as the Tears of St. Lawrence, which appear during the Perseids. This natural phenomenon became a symbol of his martyrdom and serves as a reminder of how important it is to maintain faith and hope, even in the most difficult times. Augustine Aurelius, who lived around the year 400, described in his treatise, The City of God, how Lawrence's calmness, even in the moment of his suffering, was a manifestation of divine grace. This testimony emphasizes that true strength lies not only in physical endurance, but also in spiritual tranquility, which can be achieved through faith. In contemporary theology, Lawrence's martyrdom is viewed as an act of social justice and a protest against governmental corruption. This awareness inspires people to fight against injustice and corruption in their own societies, emphasizing that even in conditions of oppression, one can find the strength for resistance and change. The question facing modern society is what true treasures mean to us, and whether it is possible to endure trials for the sake of ideals. In a world where material values are often placed above spiritual ones, it is important to remember the example of Lawrence, who, despite suffering, remained true to his beliefs. His life and martyrdom remind us that true treasures are not found in earthly riches, but in spiritual values such as love, compassion, and the willingness to help others. The answer to this question lies beyond history. It resides in the personal choice of each believer and seeker of truth. Each of us faces moments when we must choose between the easy path and the one that requires courage and resilience. The example of Lawrence inspires us not to fear difficulties and to remain true to our ideals. He teaches that true strength lies in the ability to stand against evil and injustice, even if it requires sacrifice. Lawrence has become a symbol of hope and inspiration for many generations, and his legacy continues to live in the hearts of those who strive for justice and peace. Ultimately, the martyrdom of Lawrence serves as a reminder that even in the darkest times, one can find light and hope by following one's beliefs and values.